Right, this video will show construction of the main carcass of the 4-compartment Victorian coach with bogies. The actual carcass construction is identical to the 3-compartment one, but of course this one's got 4. But the way it's put together, how we fit the seats, supports and load them in is absolutely identical. Building the sides and putting the overlays on, the steps, in fact building up the whole carcass is exact follow of the 3-compartment one. And again, the bearing system is the same as I fit on my Ashford and my other ones, but I can show you on this one. It's very straightforward to do. Once you've built your chassis up, what you have to do is, that's the inside. So from the inside of the coach, you take a bearing and you drop it into the hole with the flange is inside the coach. And you run some glue around there. And then this is now the underside of the coach. So onto there, what we have to do is we have to glue on the parts that the bogie will ride on. And that consists of this particular part here, which is a hole and a slight flange cut into all the way around, and a piece of polythene cum PETG bearing material. Now, so that's peeled off. What we then do is we run some super glue around that edge there, and then we glue that onto it like that, push down firmly. So that's then glued in position. And then we run some glue around that area there. And then we around and some glue around there. Try not to come in too close to where the bearing is. And then you'll find that that will locate over the bearing. Because the bearing protrudes slightly, that picks up on the hole in there. So that's done there. So that completes that part of it. And the bogie and its bearings then run on this nylon or PETG, and we do that at both ends. Again, I'll add a little bit of a video that shows you fitting that on another model. Then we have to insert the bolt through, and the bolt consists of 5BA, 2 nuts and a spring, and that locks everything together. The construction of the roof and the lighting bar is again identical to the 3-compartment one, except it's a bit shorter, but the same method and system is used. This details construction of the bogies for the 4-compartment Victorian coach. What's laid out in front is all the parts to build 2 bogies. It's a fairly straightforward build. So we'll start off by just reduce it down to 1 bogie. They're both similar. Both constructions are the same. The only difference is the actual top plate, which I'll show you here before we start. Let's just try and hold it so you can see. I'll bring it up to the camera. As you can see, it looks similar, except we've got a cutout there and a cutout there. And on this one, it's on each side. That's the only difference. Also, the parts that go in there, across that, between that point and that point, that's a narrow one and that's a wide one. We'll come to that in a minute when we come to build it. So if we start off with taking this one, so we'll put this one together first, and then we'll show you quickly what to do different on the other one. Right, so we start off, if you lay out as I've got them here, it's fairly obvious that that's one bogey, that's another. We'll come to those parts up there in a moment. And those are the axle boxes, which we don't need for the moment. So start off by taking one, what we call the spreader, and two blanks, as I would call it. They've got no engraving on, just the holes for the bearings. So the first thing we have to do is to fit the bearings. Now the bearings are a straight fit, just pop them in, doesn't matter which side you go in from, so until the flange goes in. And then take another one, because the actual bearing protrudes slightly, as you can see. We then take a second one and we lay it on top, so the bearing then goes through and we'll locate the second one in. So put that down for the moment, and we do exactly the same. Another pair, so in with the bearing, take another one, put it on top. At this point, I'm going to chop to another bit of a video which shows you how to glue these in. So again, it will look a little different to what we've got here, but it will show you the principle. So I'll show you that now, and when you come back, we'll move on to the next stage. Then using a thin super glue, we just want to touch some glue around the edge just to hold the ball rate in position. And via capillary action, the glue will actually flow underneath the bearing and locate it in position. We don't want to glue it to the other piece of wood underneath, just glue the bearing in. Move on to the other one. Right, leave that to one side for about 4 to 5 minutes just for the glue to go off. Right, we've just viewed that. So now what we do is we take two of these, and with the flange facing up, we insert the two tangs with the part there. Let's get it around the right way. So that's got tangs pointing down, which point to the same direction as those tangs on that end. We push that through. We do exactly the same on this side till we've got that effect. Then we add a wheel and a wheel, and then we take the other half, making sure that the lumpy bit, as I call it there, is lined up with the tangs and the lumpy bit on that one. And then this is where you need 3 hands, because you have to line everything up at the same time. Wheels, tangs, axles, until it slots together. And then holding it pressed in the middle, you should have some play in the wheels backwards and forwards. If for any reason you think you've got too much play, then you can add a small 3mm diameter washer, which presumably you would have, just to stop the play. But you shouldn't need to. You may do on the plastic wheels or nylon wheels, but on the metal ones you shouldn't need to. So we've now got that in that position. So at that point, put that down gently. And we'll move on to this section now, ready to accept the wheels. So we now take another bearing, and on this piece you'll see there's an engraving on that side, but not on that side. So on the engraving side, drop in a bearing from the top. Run some glue around it. Again, I'll show you another bit of another video that happening. Then you take this part and you glue that on. Again, I'll cut to another video that shows that happening. Then turn him over. You take that part. Again, we glue that on. It's got a recess in there which goes over the bearing, and that's glued in. Again, I'll show you another part for that. So when you come back, you'd have glued those parts in. Right, so to do this, what you'll need is you'll need the circular piece with a slight recess in it, a triangular piece, not triangular, four-sided with a cutout in it, one bearing, one of these, which we use as a spacer, and the top piece. Right, so the first thing we have to do is to put the bearing in, and we put it in from this side. So you've got the cutout there, so the bearing goes in on this side. This in the end will go on top and we'll locate it in position. But we have to glue the bearing in first. So to do that, we use this piece here just to clip underneath and lay it down so that the bearing doesn't protrude up through. And then again we use the very, very thin super glue. So I'll just top up. There we go. Just a small amount. And then just put a bit right, let's clear the nozzle. Just on one end and then the other side. That's all that's needed. And drop it down onto the bearing. It should sort of locate itself and push down firmly. And let's glue that in position. Then we turn over. And onto this side, we put this piece on, which drops over with a slight protrusion there, and there's a recess in there. Around the outside, not too much because we don't want it squirting into the bearing. So just round on the outside, as you can see, and then drop it on, and again it's a push job down. So that's that part done. So I'm not going to, right, so you've now come back. I'm not actually going to glue those in, but we'll assume that that's what you've done. Right, so we go then back to actually fitting the wheel station to this part here. Again, pick it up carefully. And what we're looking to engage is 1, 2, 3, 4 tangs, and tangs there go into 1, 2, 3, 4, and the big holes there. It's obvious how it goes because it can only go one way, but you must put it in on the side that's got the engraving on. So we drop that in. And as you can see, we've engaged in there, 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 and the two on the outside. And normally you would have that part on there. Because the wheels protrude slightly, what you can now do is turn it over and then put it down as I would have it there. Make sure it's pushed down firmly all round, and then with a little bit of super glue Now then, with a little bit of super glue, I'll pick this up so you can actually see what I'm going to do. You just want to run a little bit along there. Don't get it in the hole there. So it's a little bit along there, a little bit along there, and the same on that side. And then turn them over and onto a piece of track. Just push him down and apply a bit of pressure to the centre there while squeezing in from the sides, and just run it a little bit on the track, and then hold that there for 2 to 3 minutes, and that will ensure that the bogey and its surrounding supporting is all at 90 degrees and sits on the track quite nicely. So having reached that point, we can then move on to the next section. Now what we need to do here is we need to add the next outer part, which is this one, which is the spring detail. And again, it can only go one way. If you look carefully, you'll find some little engravings on there. Yep, okay. That then drops into there. And then before we go any further, we've got to apply a little bit of oil, a little drop in there, a little drop in there onto the actual balls themselves, and do that on the other side. Because once we put the next piece in, you don't have any access to that. So having put a little bit of oil on there, we then just drop the next one in. And then we can do one side at a time. Just need to make sure that everything lines up as you look at it. Where are we? There we are. And then when you're happy, you need to just run some glue across there and across there until it soaks in. Just need to run some glue in there and wipe it away with a tissue. And then you do exactly the same on the other side. Again, taking one with the engravings on, drop him in. Then the outer one, you do exactly the same on that side. Then turn him over. And now we can glue this up properly. So run some glue over that part there. Where are we? There we are. Run some glue over there, there, and there. And then make sure it soaks in. Again, I'll show you a bit of a video from another one. And then when it's soaked in, get rid of any excess with a tissue. And we're now going to run some glue into the two top areas there. So using the runny glue, fair amount in there because we want it to wick down inside. And then spread it around. Don't put any pressure on it. Let the glue do the work for you. You can see it soaking down in now. And we do the same on the other side. Again, being very gentle. Gently move it around, right up to the edges. So I want to glue it to the top half as well as gluing them to themselves. And turn it back, and then using a tissue, if there's any excess, just gently wipe the excess off. No pressure, otherwise you'll disturb the pieces. Right, that now really is put to one side to dry, looking about 10 to 15 minutes, in which case you can carry on doing the other one. Obviously at this point you will have that piece sat on there, and this piece here will be on the underside. I'll just zoom back out a little bit. There we go, back to filling the field. Right, so that's that part done. We can then put the axle boxes on. That's a very straightforward job. A little bit of PVA glue just in that area there, and drop the axle box on. Job done. You do that in 4 locations. That part's now done. Right, now we move on to putting the actual rotating bearings in. So I'll just drop this down and show you the next section. Just remove those parts for the moment. Right, the next part is to fit the bearings that the whole unit rests on when it rotates. So because we're doing this particular one, we've got 2 types. We've got a long one and a short one. For this one, we need the long one. Check you've got the right one, because it should fit in across there, as I've done there. And the way this is put together is you take an axle, short one, put it through the first one, take another long one, and you take a washer, which is an MDF washer, and you take a bearing, you take another washer, and you take another long one, and another long one. So that makes up a set. I'll just drop this on because that's where that will be. Let me just set that up a moment. Right, when you come to fit this one, you can see the bearing has a flange, and there's a cutout there that shows the flange goes towards the outside. If you try and put it in the other way around, it won't fit. So that then drops into there. Make sure the bearing rotates. And then you glue all the way around there, and I'll again seal a bit of another video that shows that in position and how to glue it, pushing the axle through so it touches. And again, ball race rotates. So next thing we have to do is to glue that in position. Again, we use a thin super glue. Let me zoom in a bit on that. There we go. So we use a super glue, a thin super glue. And what we want to do first of all is gently hold it down to make sure it's not going to move, and just put a touch of super glue at each end. Let that wick down in. Do that on the other pair. Spinning round. Again, a little bit of pressure. And allow that to dry for about 2 to 3 minutes. Right, so now we can finish gluing. Again, a little bit on the sides. And then make sure the axle is pushed that way as far as it'll go until it touches the inner circle. The same on the other side. And then we put some super glue around the outside of the axle to stop it slipping out. And do the same on the other side. So we then do exactly the same over on this side. That then completes that particular bogie. Now the other one, which I'll show here, is absolutely identical on building, except with this one we have smaller ones. So I'll just show you those. That's the shorter length ones, and they in fact go that way. So again, I'll just show you building it. You take one axle, take another one, take a washer, take a bearing, take another washer, take a small one, another small one. So we've made up another set similar to that, but it's smaller. Then on this one, it goes the other way. I'll just drop him in so you can see. So you can now see we have, there we go. So that's the only difference between the two bogies, is where that is put in. So hopefully that explains all of that. As I say, there are bits of other videos which I've incorporated into this one to help out. So I'll leave you to build the second bogie. It's as straightforward as the first. And don't forget to oil the bearings. Thank you.